everyone. I just want to thank you for coming. So on behalf of Bloomberg, I want to welcome you to our new space. We just opened this in May. For those of you who don't know, I'm Nick Madrid. I'm with the engineering team here at Bloomberg. We're a 32-year-old company, about 16,000 employees. We're private. About 4,000 of those are developers. We opened up this space in May to bring people in our space, to let people know what we're doing. For those that don't know, we deliver news, data, and analytics to financial professionals. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be around. We're also looking to host more events like this in our space. So if you have any ideas, feel free to get my contact information. So I'll pass it over to Katharine.
Thank you so much to Bloomberg's SF Tech Hub for hosting, and Nick for helping organize. And we're excited to present a great evening for you with Charles Belle of Startup Policy Lab and the SFTech4Good Meetup and Code for SF. This is a multiple partner event. Lots of great stuff lined up tonight. So we'll start with a presentation by Charles, and then some quick intros about different Civic Hack Night projects with Code for SF. And we'll make it started. After that, there'll be some time to work on projects. Welcome. And now over to Charles.
I'll try to get started here. First of all, thank you for having me tonight, Katherine. I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for showing up tonight. I don't know if anyone else is going through the cold. I'm just doing the recovery from this. It's been running rampant through the space, so I apologize for my voice. But that said, I'm very excited to be here. The picture up there, I even dressed to match. It was a little bit, I love the Bloomberg space. We were here, we hosted an event here in May, but I also think the picture actually represents something that's very relevant to this particular crowd and what I hope to talk about a little bit. And that's Miguel Gamino, which is the CIO, and he was sitting next to me. And what it was a great opportunity for the community to actually engage with a policymaker that is driving a lot of changes within the city of San Francisco, and because of his particular ambition and role and leadership, it's actually having a global impact. So if you aren't familiar with Miguel, I would suggest maybe finding him on Twitter. He actually is very active. He was rated like I think the #1 CIO on Twitter or something like that by CIO Magazine, and engaging with him and his department. So that, and of course, everyone knows if you find a picture you like, just always keep using that same picture over and over again, because it's so difficult. So that's the other reason. See, oh, okay, I got it to work. So a little bit about me. I'm not going to talk about me the whole time tonight, because I really want to talk about some fantastic opportunities in the space that I see from my work, my experience, because of all the wonderful creativity in the room. So we are a tech think tank, Startup Policy Lab, and that's our little symbol over there, Pierre, Policy Panda. We work at the intersection of technology and government, as it points out there, to build products between emerging technology and to support innovative communities. And what that means is that we work a lot of times with the startup community as they're trying to engage with policy, because it's becoming an increasing challenge. And the products that we build are technology projects, they are educational activities, hence that picture with Miguel Gamino, and they are research and analysis projects that we'll be rolling out in the coming weeks. One example, a very quick example of a technology project, because people always ask me this, we recently received a Knight Foundation prototype grant for our project Canary.io, which is all about helping startups navigate law enforcement data requests. We see that as the first step towards a bigger conversation about how technology can be used to link law enforcement agencies with private companies in a way that we can make that information transparent, and so that society can start to see what's going on from the government side and the information they're pulling from private actors. By night, so to speak, even though the meetings are during the day, I'm a member of COIT. I'm just curious, has anybody heard of COIT? Just a quick hand raise, right? Not a lot of people. So if you live, especially if you live in San Francisco, COIT is the Committee on Information Technology. This is the committee that sets the IT policy for the city of San Francisco. I am one of 2 public members on there, so I get to sit at the big table, but I don't get to vote. But the benefit is that I'm knee-deep in a lot of the conversations that the city of San Francisco is having about information technology. So sitting at that table, you have representatives from the mayor, from the board of supervisors, but we also have agencies that are there. And that's really important, because you actually get to hear maybe some of the pushback from agencies, concerns that they have. And so to give you 2 quick examples of what this means in kind of your everyday policy setting. The first one is we do the software evaluation policy. So there was a law that was passed not too long ago, but essentially it requires every agency now to consider open source software equal to commercial software. That's a policy. That is not necessarily something that agencies would naturally do on their own. They would immediately, generally speaking, go to the procurement process and kind of push it out. Now they're required by that policy to demonstrate that they've actually gone through and looked at open source software. That's a first step in the right direction. Another example of what this means in terms of policy setting is drones, UAS, if you want to use a technical term. The COIT is actually working right now to set drone policy for the city of San Francisco, specifically for agencies. How are agencies going to use drones in the city? So whether it's for education or law enforcement purposes. What does that mean for image capturing? What does that mean for data retention, and so on and so forth? So this committee, which has been around for about 15 years, has been slowly but surely kind of moving up the ranks in the city of San Francisco as a powerful voice in terms of dictating how we're going to engage with technology from a government side. The benefit is that it's a public committee. Everyone is welcome to attend. That's a big point I want to make. You are all welcome to come and sit, and you can ask questions at the end. They have a public comment period, and information is online, and you can find them online if you just do a quick search for SFTech4Good. The final comment that I want to make is if you're interested in what the city is doing, most cities do this, but the city of San Francisco is required by law now to do this, is the technology plan. If you want to know where the city of San Francisco is going, or you just want to have a little bit of insight in terms of how the city is thinking, that I cannot recommend reading that enough. It'll talk about the free Wi-Fi, it'll talk about the ICT, it'll even talk about the revamp of the property tax system and how they're doing the upgrades there. So if you're looking for like that kind of entryway, into San Francisco, like what are they thinking about strategically? Please go check this out, even if you just read the summary, but it's actually fairly accessible. But this is what's dictating how the city is thinking about tech policy for the next 5 years. So I was asked to talk a little about civic tech, and I'm going to start a little bit kind of like talking about civic tech writ large. It isn't really super defined at the moment. 2015, the Knight Foundation came out with their report, and actually I think it's probably the best so far landscape of how we think about civic tech and the many faces of that. And there are a lot of groups that work in this. Obviously, Code for America and Code for SF are very involved, but if the Tummel Accelerator is working on accelerating technologies to support kind of urban challenge, to address urban issues. So you can engage in a variety of different contexts. There is Lawrence, I thought I saw Lawrence here. Lawrence, if you don't know Lawrence, I'm sure everyone here does, but just in case, Lawrence is currently writing, I think, a 4-part piece on civic tech and breaking it down and providing more information. I would recommend reading it. He does a really, at least part 1 I read was really good. I got two. But I mean, Lawrence has been doing this for a long time. He's writing a great piece in terms of breaking this down and drilling it down. He has the same, I think, the same logo. Like we're kind of using this now as like a shared lexicon to kind of think about this space and where we might engage. In my particular world, I tend to fit largely into the government data, which should be on your upper right, I believe, circle. So it's internal performance and analytics software, public data access, and transparency. Not everyone has to be there, of course. That's just kind of my background, and I'm going to talk about that for a quick second, because I think it provides some insight into how to engage with government a little bit and lessons learned. So I am an attorney by training. I don't usually start off with that. I like to start off with, hi, my name is Charles. I got into this space with a group loosely called at the time Legal Hacks. The group that you'll see now if you do a search is not the same group. We weren't really official, we weren't really formal, although I think I did own legalhacks.org at one point. And our entire focus was on structuring like legislative data. So right now, if you try to, you can go and see the laws, but there isn't any structure around the laws in a sense that a developer could use and pull, where if there's proposed legislation, you could see the impact in different areas, and so on and so forth. So we were kind of a loose collection of attorneys and technologists that worked in the space, and that was our big target area. We learned a lot of lessons. One of our lessons was it doesn't really help, and I'll come back to this later, it doesn't really help with the technology if people can just avoid it. That's a big one. This is what the tool looked like, just to give you an idea of kind of the work that we did and how the markup would work. Actually, I should go back. Sorry, this symbol, I should have explained this. If the United Nations was doing a lot of work in structuring legislative data, and they rolled out this markup, this XML tool, Akomontoso. I forgot the exact meaning of it, but they were using that as a tool, especially for developing nations and those developing a democracy, to actually start moving their legislation and their laws immediately into a structured format. Turns out the United States is actually much more difficult because of our system. If you have a civil code structure, it's actually a lot easier to do so. So yes, sorry, and jump back. This is the tool that we were using at the time. We actually ran an international hackathon. I don't know why we called it that, but it was a hackathon where we brought attorneys and developers into the room because it turned out while the developers could do a lot of the technical work, they didn't necessarily understand the nuances of the law. And it was a good insight into like the different roles that people can play, even if you're not a tech person in this space, and the needs that kind of stretch out beyond just being tech. So I'm on COIT. I work every day at the intersection of government and technology. I'm an attorney. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about some of the challenges that I see in civic tech. And there's a lot up there, so I'm going to try to go through this pretty quickly because I don't want to take up too much of your time. I broke it down into politics, process, and practice. And that's because we have to consider all of them. There's a tendency, I think, in our community to want to separate a lot of the tech from the policy and the tech from the politics. But as someone who works with policymakers and elected officials, keep them separate in that concept, we have to actually address all of them. So first of all, politics, very briefly, culture. San Francisco, we do a lot of work from civic tech from the ground up. So does the Bay Area, actually. It's a very California thing. You go to other cities around this country, it is not like that. There are goods and bads and strengths and weaknesses to both approaches, but it's something that has to be kept in mind. If you're going to go to New York or Chicago, they're going to think very top-down and how you're going to engage with the system. But if you're engaging in San Francisco or Oakland, it is very bottom-up, and you have to think about how you're going to engage with what you're looking for from the city government. It's going to be very different. There's also oftentimes a gap between, there are irregular conversations that happen. So when I had Miguel Gamino here, one of the best things that happened was he said, hey, I need use cases from you guys. And someone stood up and said, hey, your meetings are at 10 a.m. I can't do that, I gotta go to work. So that was a break, right? He's using Twitter to actually try to find and filter out ways that the Wi-Fi network, for example, if he sees issues on Twitter. But we need to start developing mechanisms and figuring out ways to get that communication going back and forth. And it's also an awesome opportunity for this community to start building those bridges and those structures to just go start talking to them. They are public servants. They actually will talk to you. Process. This is a big challenge on the competing priorities. A lot of times people go to government, and I've kind of gotten used to this now in COIT, they say you should build this app, but the government's like, we're building infrastructure. So the city of San Francisco is about $9 billion a year. Half of that is enterprise agency, half of that is general fund. They're like a big company. So a lot of times when people come to the applications, they have to be very clear about where those applications fit into this greater structure. And that gets to the second point, B2B, not B2C. A lot of times the business, it's kind of more mentality. The government is thinking about how to manage these bigger, larger enterprise systems, and that doesn't mean that they aren't missing things on the application side, but as we approach and engage with them, we have to keep that in mind in terms of how does it fit into that IT strategy that they're moving forward. Finally, practice, customer confusion. I was talking to someone else in this space maybe a couple weeks ago about this. A lot of times it's, hey, I'm solving this problem, why isn't government listening to me? It's because we're not necessarily solving the problem for the government, we're solving the problem for us. And that's not necessarily wrong, but it's something to keep in mind when we go to an agency and we say, look, this is broken. They may say, yes, that's broken, but look, I have 3 other things that are broken. And where do we fit into that? We can start solving those problems. And then finally, open data, because I do a lot of work around open data. I call open data 2.0. The first push was like, just get it online. Come on, just make it digital, put it something so we can get to it. Open data 2.0 is, okay, now we gotta think about it. You know, we can pull out the little hyphens and everything, but we still know it's your social security number. So data has a lot of true source information, so we have to be careful. And the most vulnerable communities are often the ones that are gonna pay the price for us to get that information online, and it's just something to keep in mind. So, where we go? Oh, there we go. Opportunities though, I wanna be positive. Those are just some of the challenges to keep in mind. Opportunities, there's a massive amount of growth going on. Government's finally starting to get this. So these numbers are for local and state government. This is 2015, $25.5 billion this year in IT, and of that, 24% of that is on civic tech. So that's a good thing, because once government starts to move and starts to invest, we're gonna start seeing this momentum pushing and moving forward. And then finally, it's growing 14x, right? So this isn't the government just kind of pandering to a few groups, this is government actually investing in this system. Next, we're seeing tech actually influencing policy. So that's COIT, that's what I'm on. We're actually starting to see government thinking about technology not just as a cost center, but as a way to actually, how do we solve a problem? Now, that doesn't mean they're ready and they're as fast as the private industry, but they're finally starting to think about technology not just as a bottom line kind of structure. They say, oh, it costs $25 for this hard drive, so to speak. It's actually, no, how do we solve the problem? How does technology solve the problem? Okay, then what are the costs? And that's a big shift, and we're seeing that with COIT, SF Open Data Laws, example from the legislative side here in San Francisco, and USDS, if you're familiar with their kind of work with the feds and how they're kind of bringing it in to rethink that. Government's embracing technology in different ways. If you're not familiar with the Mayor's Office on Civic Innovation, I'm sure most people here are. Moki, Jay Nath runs that office. You know, they have a great GitHub where they're starting to push open source information out there. We need to support that. We need to help them get that out there and be supporters of that, because honestly, he's fighting a battle internally, because that's not common internally. So we need to tell like the policymakers and our elected officials, Jay's doing a good job. Like, this is the direction that we want to go. And then we're seeing new thoughts in terms of data jams, because they're starting to think about data differently, and for your hiring terms at the federal level, because they're starting to rethink how we actually hire people in tech, which is amazing. So I wanted to give you guys a real world example, so it's not just kind of all up in the air and Charles doing a rant. Because I do talk with city officials and I do talk to policymakers. One example is the SF Department of Elections. And I think this is actually, they're a particularly good example to work with for a variety of reasons. So number one, their priority, what they need to do is very clear, right? We just had the elections. That's their day, right? You know, you talk to them, they basically have one day a year where they have like all hands on deck, nothing can go wrong, cough, cough, Chads, right? Like, it's critical, they have to pass it up to the state or they get really in trouble. A lot of times people forget that in terms of how they think. That governs their entire process, and everything that they're doing internally is making sure November, the first Tuesday of every November goes perfectly, because they can't afford to have a mistake on that. Second, they actually have real tech needs, and this is what's kind of cool, right? They have two. They have one that's kind of internal facing and one that's external. So starting with the external, they really want to build a developer website. They have another tool I'm going to show in a second, but they really want to build a tool that puts data out there like an API so that people can access that information in ways that they're not already. And this is an entity that has decades of data, right? And they're trying to figure out ways to push that out. So they need help, I can just tell you that. They need help building that. Internally, going back to their priorities, it's a good insight when you ask them, what's your biggest problem? It's like resource allocation. We have to figure out where we're going to put volunteers, where we're going to put certain machinery. They're trying to balance all that, and they're desperately looking for something internally that can help them balance that load, because right now they're doing it by pen and paper, basically. Okay, and they're not doing predictive because they can't do trends. Oops, sorry. Lastly, first world problems. One thing, please, to keep in mind, I hear this a lot. I know lines matter, like waiting in lines. Nobody likes to wait in line. My grandmother would have waited 10 minutes to vote. She would have been happy to wait 10 minutes to vote because she wasn't allowed to vote, right? So let's really keep our thoughts on what the problem that we're trying to solve here is. Is the problem that we can't wait 10 minutes? Well, frankly, most of us are still checking what we're going to try to vote. Or is the problem that we need to allocate resources to maybe disabled communities, vulnerable communities, communities that can't, are ESL, and we need to make sure that they have a chance to vote, because that's where the break is. So that's just my little kind of rant on that. Is I'm willing to wait 10 minutes. My grandparents fought for that. Let's think about that when we try to solve some of the problems while we're out there. So here's an example of what they're doing already. I won't spend too much time, but if you haven't seen it, you can see that they are into data. They want to share their data. You can download this as a CSV file, but it's not built for any APIs or developer tools. But you can see what they're trying to do, and you can go and play with the website. So Civic Tech 2.0, not just tech. A few lessons that I've learned from my experiences. Don't forget human behavior. Technology is useless when people can avoid it or don't use it. Sorry, when the humans don't use it. I learned that very strongly in the political space when we were trying to build tools to track lobbyist funding. And what we learned is that that wasn't necessarily how they operated. It turns out it's great when you can go record something, but when they're just meeting at a bar and just not saying that they're going to give you money, but they just mention that they will not give you money, all of a sudden it doesn't get recorded. So we have to think about that a little bit. Second lesson, we can't avoid the law. I know it sucks, but one of the works that I do, one of the projects I'm working on right now, govdex.org, it's all about threshold exemptions. I jumped into it thinking, oh, we're going to make this data available. We're going to find out how procurement systems work. We're going to find out where these gaps in the systems are, and then we're going to make this public, and we have transparency, and it's awesome. The problem is the laws are all over the place. They are a disaster. They're inconsistent. And then on top of that, the business systems were prepared. So I have to go all the way back to the beginning now, and I have to actually start with, how do I build a model law? That model law has to then be adopted by the states. I don't know what this, sorry, it keeps going off. Shut up, Charles. But that's a lesson that I had to learn. Hopefully other people can take from that recreating the wheel. Finally, relationships matter. There are a lot of people working in government right now that are actually doing a lot of good work. They're often hidden. They're not necessarily your elected officials or sometimes like your middle management. A great example is in Barcelona. The woman who pushed their innovation labs out there, she was like an urban planner. Now she's kind of surfaced her way up. She had to battle, she had to fight. She's been doing it for a couple of years. There are people like that in every city, but they need our help, and we need to find them and back them and love them as much as possible, because that's also a great insight to some of the challenges that we're facing. Some ideas for non-techie approaches. Look for less sexy processes. There's a lot of pushing paper, frankly. I had some friends do something recently at the state of California where they actually had to go and file the paperwork at an office and fill out a piece of paper. Now, the state of California actually filed it really quickly. We were quite surprised. But the fact that they had to actually go there was kind of ridiculous. And the thing is the paperwork is actually your process, your submission form, right? It's already done, it's already written. That could easily be translated onto, online and move forward from there. So those are great spots to start looking for. They might not be as sexy as some of the things we see out there, but those are awesome opportunities for us to get involved. Intermediary, I do a lot of stuff with open data. There's gonna be some questions coming forward about how we look at data for vulnerable communities, whether we want the cops to have access to it. There might be roles for third-party intermediaries to actually be the collection point in between government and citizens. And then finally, if you're like an attorney, look for comparative tools. You can actually provide some insight. Last quick things, how to get started and level up. Join your local commission. There's an example in the bottom. There are 180 approximately commissions in San Francisco alone. A lot of times they need experts. It doesn't have to be a tech commission. The entertainment commission right now is the #1 commission pushing drone use. So they need experts. If you're involved, get involved. Be a resource, talk to the elected officials. They're actually asking us all the time. Policymakers always ask that question, what is your biggest issue? You'll be surprised that what they tell you is your biggest problem or your biggest issue is not yours oftentimes, but it might help you think about it. And then think big picture, not politics. A lot of times I hear people don't want to work with others because of politics, even though the greater good would actually be really, really awesome if they did. And sometimes that's difficult, but if it's not going to hurt you too much in the value set, really think about that. So this is my last slide. Things I want to say, because I'd be trapped for just the last minute while Katharine tells me to get off. #1, San Francisco is building a massive infrastructure, information as a service. It will allow the city to do a lot of cool things for agencies to build applications on top of, and this community to build applications on top of. But we can think bigger than that. That platform could be used by the entire Bay Area. It doesn't just have to be San Francisco. And then finally, how policy helps. We have a lot of sister city agreements around tourism, but we don't have sister city agreements around open source policies. That's something I'd love to see. We're working with Copenhagen on some things. I'd love to see a sister city agreement on GitHub where both cities agree to commit to put their content there and share and mutually develop and last it. So that's it. You can find me at startuppolicylab.com. You can find me at Twitter, GitHub, and Gitbook. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charles. We'll be saving Q&A at the end, so find Charles after the Code for SF Hack Night portion starts. So I'm turning this over to our Code for SF partners. Thank you again.
Do you want to hold that? And the slide.
I'm going to do a quick
Slide share.
slide.
So while we're getting set up, we just had a couple questions. How many people have been to a Civic Hack Night before? How many have been to a Code for San Francisco Hack Night? Okay, so for you who've been to a San Francisco one, we're just going to do a quick orientation and kind of overview of stuff that we've done. And you're probably saying this. My name is Julio Feliciano. I'm the member lead for Code for San Francisco. And
I'm Katharine. I'm also on the project launch team for Code for San Francisco. I was doing a slide change. Can you raise your hand if you know what Code for America is? Can you raise your hand if you know what Code for San Francisco is?
Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, guys. So, essentially,
there he goes. So this is what our agenda is going to be for this evening. And we're basically going to talk about code of conduct, because one of the things that one outcome from tonight is getting you to work on a project or hacking on some kind of issue, getting out there, or just kind of hanging out. We'll do the quick introductions. We'll talk a little bit about Code for America and Code for San Francisco. Do a quick overview, which we stole from Chicago, on Civic Hacking 101. We'll talk some projects and get you hacking on a project or seeing what you guys want to do after that. So, and code of conduct. Wow, this is big. So we're not going to read all through it, but one of the things we want to say is be respectful, be mindful. I'm going to pick a couple. They all have their equal weight, But like for instance, number 3, presume that the value of others. Everyone's ideas, skills, and contributions matter. Also, encourage members and participants to listen as much as they speak. So if you have time, we'll go to the next slide, which is the continuation. There's only 12. You can always go to codeforsanfrancisco.org/about, and we'll have it laid out there. We'll also have our harassment policy there and how to report kind of behavior, which takes me into item 12, which is to provide an environment where people are not subject to discrimination and harassment. Basically, be mindful, be respectful. You know, we're a community and we get all along. So, introductions. Normally we do this as a smaller group. So what I'm going to ask of each of you is, we're going to do 2 minutes. One person, you're each going to give your name, what brought you here, and your favorite snack. So now, turn to the person. If you don't know the person, just introduce yourself, or turn around and introduce yourself. So let's take 2 minutes to go ahead and do that. Thank you. You'll actually have more time to get to know each other later on as we go through. So that was just a quick introduction. And actually, I'll ask one person. What's the weirdest snack that you heard mentioned?
Black.
Okay. All right.
So I'm just going to kind of tell you guys a little bit about Code for America and Code for San Francisco. Code for America is a nonprofit. They are based here in San Francisco, and they work, this is kind of their motto. I'm going to read it out loud because I think it's pretty badass. Code for America believes government can work for the people, by the people in the 21st century. They have kind of 2 or 3 main things they do. One of them is helping to coordinate volunteer groups just like Code for San Francisco all around the country, working locally on some of the civic tech issues that Charles mentioned and all sorts of other things, whether it's around transit, whether it's around voting, whether it's around how do you find free school lunch when your city is rioting. All sorts of cool stuff that like volunteer brigades across the country do. Code for America supports them. They also have a cool fellowship program where they have a small team of technologists partnering with a city government for an entire year to essentially take a challenge, take an idea, and see what they can do with user research and technology and make that better and make that happen in each of those spaces. And then they also do general advisement and consulting work with cities across the country. So as one of the volunteer brigades that has come together to tackle, San Francisco, the city that we work and live in and love, with technology, this is what we do. I'm going to just let you guys take a minute to read that. So the last part, or not the super last part, but auto-affect and encourage positive change. Essentially, that's our goal. We're like, hey, how can we use technology? How can we use working with one another in a grassroots way to make a positive difference? Code for San Francisco, we meet on Wednesday nights. This is an amazing and beautiful space. This is not our regular space. We are lucky enough to be also in San Francisco at the Code for America headquarters. So on Wednesday nights from 6:30 to 9, you can come and volunteer your time and your skills, whether you know how to code, whether you went to art school, whatever, everything in between. You can come and volunteer your skills to help the city. In general, we have about 10 or 12 ongoing projects that are pretty regular with Code for San Francisco that are working on things as you're going to hear some of them working on things as diverse as transit, to voting, to how do we build a platform to support other people who are also doing civic projects. So we also are having, so you can join us next week for a regular evening. On December 9th, we're having a demo night, so you can come specifically and see what all of the projects in our brigade are doing, or in Code for San Francisco. So.
Yay!
And now Julio's gonna kind of tell us about civic hacking. Here.
So it's when I love graffiti, which don't tell the city. But we're going to talk quickly about Civic Hacking 101. And this is kind of in a quick little nutshell of what it is. One thing, actually, the word hacking, I think the best thing, or best definition I've ever heard was, it's just doing the best you can with the most limited resource, or with a limited resource. So let's go to the next slide. So what does that look like? So we basically, all these three things together, open data, and we are lucky to have Jason Lawley from our government relations, open data. And so the one thing is combining open data from a government agency, or it can be from private industry. As long as they're willing to release it in an open data set, great. And then we match that together with open source projects, either from our own community or the community at large. And even projects from around the world, because there's also Code for All, which Code for America does, which goes all the way from Pakistan, Berlin, Poland, there's a go thing. And then you, people like you who come to these events who just tinker. Because the one thing that's really great about coming to these civic hacking events is, you know what, I can work on something really small or I can work on something really large. But your small contribution will add up to something really great. And that is what civic hacking is. And what does it look like? Woohoo! Which is local free web. This is one of our projects, because what we heard from the community was, hey, it's great creating these applications, to creating all these apps, but some of our community members don't have access to internet or a computer. So we're like, hey, and one of our members, Joseph, he actually talked and got all this information. And basically what this does is each Muni stop within San Francisco has a unique identifier, and we were really thankful for MTA for providing it. We worked with them with some of the data that was in there. And basically you text this number, and you receive a message with the 3 closest locations that have free internet and a computer together. And how did this all happen was just an amazing group of people. You don't have to be a tech or person who develops. You can be just a community member. What we found out, we had designers. We had Muni writers, because we had people to go out to these bus stops and test out these locations. So it was really great. Some of the things we got from MTA was like, there's not a bus stop at that location. That's not possible. And so we kind of ended up cleaning the data. We had front-end, back-end developers. Librarians were one of our biggest advocates, mainly because the main library in San Francisco is overwhelmed by users. There's like a 2-hour wait. And they know 4 blocks or less than a mile away, there's another library that people can use. However, people are not aware of it. So what they partnered with us is like, get a flyer out to every library. And the main library, we gave them, there's a Polk Street 19 bus. We got that number and we told them, do a flyer, give that number to people, and they'll get the information on there. We had testers, people from the community who came in who had their text messaging phones that weren't smart. We had translators, because we went to the Tenderloin, we went to the Mission, and we flyered. But we needed people to translate the flyer into Spanish and into Chinese. And a great people who helped us flyer. And we also did a video, which I'm not going to show because of time, or thought they were actors, and so which was really great. And that's kind of what civic hacking looks like. So, also, which we also do, we have GitHub and Slack. GitHub is kind of a central repository where all this information is kept. We could talk more in detail about that later on, but it's a good place to see what projects we're working on, what state they're in, and also an easy way to contribute. If you're not able to attend one of our hack nights, you can go ahead and do that. And Slack is a communication tool which allows you to see kind of communications that are happening in a project, because each project has a Slack channel that you can go in, kind of eavesdrop on saying, hey, you know, this project's going great or not. So it's really great. If you have time, we suggest you join the Slack channel, see what's going on, and go from there. And now I turn it over to Katharine.
So we actually have 2 projects here that are going to give you a 5-minute overview as to what they're doing. They're doing some pretty kick-ass stuff, and they're going to get into more depth about what they're up to, and these are two great examples to do that. And the first person who's up is Lawrence. He's going to be talking about Civic makers. I'm going to give you this, and there's a microphone up here, and I'm also going to do your slide change.
That would be fabulous. Hello,
Yeah.
everyone. Welcome. Super exciting to be here at the Bloomberg Tech Hub. This is pretty nice, huh?
And then, is
The
that
pizza I'm
right?
talking about is delicious. High quality pizza. So my name is Grodeska. I'm the founder of Civic Makers. We are working to help more people make better decisions together. Still looking for something?
We keep talking loudly, and we will find you a mic.
I can talk loudly. More people making better decisions together. We are a network for civic practitioners to find the talent, tools, and knowledge necessary for their civic and public good projects. We've been around for over a year and a half. We had our first event last June 2014 to bring together all the folks that are working in the civic innovation space. We've done 15 plus events in San Francisco and New York City for 1,500 civic makers with dozens of speakers across the leading civic organizations, including Charles Belle and Startup Policy.
You're good.
We just did an event around public broadband in San Francisco. So we are very interested in how we can bring people together around solutions. This is our wonderful team. We have a lot of our folks in the audience tonight. Stand up if you have worked on civic makers in some way, shape, or form. I'm looking at you. Stand up, Jonathan. Yes, all right. Raise your hand. Okay, raise your hand. This is our sexy team. The state of civic tech and democracy, there's a lot of hope that we've heard about tonight for the potential for civic technology to improve how we work together in community, how we work together in organizations, how we work together in institutions. There's an explosion of tech tools happening, tools like Lumio, Democracy OS, Neighborland, too many to count. There's a really strong civic tech community in pockets around the country and the world, and there's increasing investment and scalable business models that's happening. The space is growing. However, there's also many hurdles. There's a lack of vision for reclaiming the process of democracy itself, not just the technology, but how we work together. There's a lack of broader awareness of civic tech tools, so how do we get our work out into the space of the public good? And it's a largely unnetworked space, so how do we take the local free web project and share it with other brigades around the country? Our theory of change is that as these tools come out into the community, as you use them in your workplace, in your community group, in your local institutions, that this participatory, collaborative, direct, democratic style of work will influence your expectations in every context, and that there'll be a grassroots, bottom-up demand for more direct democracy around the country and the world. Our market research shows that many organizations need help finding the right solutions for their work. This is a quote that we had from a survey that we did earlier this year. Anytime our work process feels less efficient than it could be, we think about what new processes or tools we could adopt to improve it. So people are regularly searching, and peer validation and social proof is the most important data point when making a decision about how to adopt a new tool. And there's some sharing information that we got from that survey. And so our product vision is, you could call it a Stack Overflow for civic tech. Stack Overflow is a place where programmers come to learn about answers to questions they have about a particular language or a particular tool set. Our product vision is people plus tools plus knowledge equals more collaboration, more democracy. And so we're looking to empower civic practitioners to share, discover, and collaborate on solutions for better civic engagement and collective governance. An example, we have two more sexy folks up here. The one on the left is on his way to El Salvador to go surfing, so he couldn't be here with us tonight. This is Jesse. He's the captain of Code for San Francisco. And on the right is my friend Jean Walsh. She's a communications manager at the Department of, the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, SF Water. So Jesse wanted to implement a open source project called Adopt-A-Drain, which has been done in Oakland and other cities across the country. Jean, who he didn't know until he met randomly at a conference, is the owner of the data set that he needs. So they've been collaborating about how to implement Adopt-A-Drain so that local residents can adopt a drain to keep it free from stormwater overflow. We see an opportunity to help make these connections on our platform and for Jesse to ask questions about how to implement that open source software tool set, and for Jean to find people to help with that kind of a project. So Jesse actually will be one of our early testers. This is what our homepage visual comp looks like right now. You can see tools. There'll be a list of stories about how tools are being used. Again, we're looking at people using tools towards solutions or stories. And that really, this is a picture of a tool profile, pretty standard stuff. But where it gets exciting is this story page. And so you can see there's a description of the story, there's the tools used in the story, and then at the bottom, there's some questions. And if you go to the right, you can see a little bit of a close-up. We're looking at a Quora-type model for question and answers around civic projects. So instead of relying on case studies to share knowledge about this space, we think that we can get people asking and answering questions in a micro-contribution style to facilitate the extraction and sharing of knowledge around civic projects. Our project status is that we've gone through all the product strategy basics. We have a product vision and personas. We've done research, wireframes, and visual comps with our UX and design team. And after a hack weekend, this past weekend, we have a prototype that's 90% finished. It's an Angular front end, a Firebase back end, although we'll be moving to Rails eventually. And we're going to commence user testing and user experiments to validate some of our product assumptions. And we have a whole bunch of content partnerships lined up to do that with other brigades, with 18F, with a bunch of folks in the civic space. So we're really excited about that. We promised to have our prototype done by hack night in December, or sorry, demo night in December. You can help by, if you're a designer and you're interested in doing any aspect of design, whether it's visual brand, whether it's user experience exploration, or user interface design, we'd love to talk to you. If you're into development, we have full stack needs. Like I said, we're in Firebase, but looking to build out a Rails backend, or if it's front end styling. I have just enough knowledge in CSS to be very dangerous, so please help me get out of the code base because it's not going to be good for anybody. We need to do QA testing. We also want to run user experiments and do user interviews. And also we're looking for this community to share tools and knowledge. So very shortly when we have the prototype ready, we're going to be asking all of you to share your knowledge out and make the entire community more effective by that action of sharing. You can find out more and join our mailing list at civicmakers.org, and you can follow us at civicmakers. I'll be around for the rest of the night. We'll be having our normal Wednesday night stand-up. Join us.
So my name is Dale McGrew, and I am from We Vote USA. We're a Code for San Francisco Brigade, a project. And I'm here to talk about how we can get 10 million more voters in 2018. Thanks for coming. So our country's future is determined by the decisions we make when we vote, the makeup of our elected leaders, and the policies that are enacted. But do we feel that the actions of our government fit with the will of most Americans? Not really. And why is that? Well, for starters, 47 million voters, registered voters, who showed up in the 2012 presidential election just did not show up in the 2014 midterm election. And even voters that showed up didn't always vote for everything on the ballot. So this lack of participation has real consequences nationally and locally. The people who get into power are unlikely to reflect the values of the American population because they are only being elected by a subset of the population. And when politicians are not passing the policies that most Americans support, it's clear that we're seeing an off-balance concentration of power. So making voting more social for millions of citizens can change this. We can motivate each other and help each other to make good decisions. Instead of voters being prey for special interests, we can protect each other and hold politicians accountable when it comes time to vote. This is where the We Vote movement comes in. We're building tools so that like-minded voters can work together leading up to elections. We're doing this as a nonprofit in the public trust, all open source, inspired by community collaborations like Wikipedia and Firefox Mozilla. We really are in a golden moment of opportunity. There's an open data and civic hacking revolution going on that makes what we're doing possible really in just the last year or two, I believe. There are dedicated organizations making ballot and political data available. Groups like MapLight, the League of Women Voters, the Sunlight Foundation, Google Civic, just to name some. And I'm very thankful for these groups. It really makes possible what we're doing. There's also a national movement of civic hackers donating their time to work with political data gathered around Code for America brigades all over the country. And for example, WeVote has a team when we meet weekly at the Code for San Francisco Brigade. And I'm very thankful for Code for America and all of the hard work that the Code for San Francisco Brigade team does. Yeah. So there's more and more research data available for the first time this year, revealing why people vote, why they don't vote, and how they can be encouraged to vote. The research gives us a lot more insight into why 47 million voters did not show up in 2014. It's like the pieces of a giant puzzle are coming together. WeVote assumes that we only have 5 to 8 minutes of a voter's time. And we think that the opinions of our friends and the organizations we trust is the fastest and most reliable way to inform ourselves. I love this picture. We don't assume people want to research and ponder. We all want people to research and ponder. And voters might say that they will research and ponder. But today's ballots are just overwhelming. There's just a lot on them, especially in California. There's a cost in physical energy to thinking and making decisions. And individuals only have so much energy for decisions every day. Instead, we assume that people want to learn from trusted friends and experts, and with much less reading. In talking to a lot of voters, we heard people saying things like, I just want someone to tell me how to vote. So our challenge is to connect voters with their friends and trusted experts in meaningful ways so that we can grow our political network. We've chosen a DNA that is focused on making voter turnout grow, and we're exploring and testing ways to get voters engaged quickly, paying special attention to voter spread, and we're harnessing the need that advocacy organizations have to self-promote and get their ideas out. We're creating a kind of democracy shopping cart, essentially, where a voter can collect opinions and ideas and act on them. And voters can accept or reject opinions from a variety of sources and reject or ignore others' opinions. In a marketplace of ideas, it's basically a marketplace of ideas. So we can unify many voices into a single organized shopping cart that will lead to voter clarity and confidence, and we think it will increase voter turnout. So we're well on our way to our first version. So we'll be ready for the 2016 San Francisco and Oakland elections. And we're gathering at each other's houses, offices, at weekend hackathons, and at weekly events. We're designers, engineers, organizers, political junkies, and citizens, just good citizens. We have the power to make a difference, and so can you. So we'll be over by the mini manta rays, that fish tank. So come on by and hope to meet you. Thank you.
So now we want to tell you more about, essentially, you've heard some cool stuff, really cool projects. There's now an opportunity for you guys to do something. We're going to go through a bunch of 1-minute lightning talks about the projects that are here that you can jump on and hack on. And then we're also at the end of these 1-minute lightning talks going to have 30-second pitches by people from the audience. And then you'll disperse. So pay attention, because then you have to make a decision as to where you have to go.
All right, so first up is Code for San Francisco website and tools. We have Trent.
Hi, I'm Trent Oswald. I'm the team lead for the Code for San Francisco website and tools team. As part of the core team, we are covering 3 major things. First is to cover the website and make it an efficient portal for both the core team members as well as the project hackers to be able to access the data and the resources that we have available as a brigade. Second thing as a team is to make sure that we are basically the gatekeepers of the resources that have been provided for us. We have a number of different resources that have been donated to the brigade, AWS credits, Azure credits, a number of different programs that have been donated for use in the brigade, and we, as the website and tools team, are basically the keepers of the keys to those. And so that's one thing that we do is a little bit of the DevOps for each of the projects. And lastly, what we also do is we take care of projects that are time sensitive and that need to be done very quickly. For example, it was mentioned the Adopt a Drain project, which we just barely released and we're still kind of tweaking. That was something that we pulled together in a week, and so that we could get it launched. We need UX, we need designers, we need both back-end and front-end developers. We're a team of 3 people covering the entire brigade. And so any help that you have would be great. I'm going to be in the back corner. There's a glass office back there, and there'll be a sign, you'll find me.
Cool.
So the next couple of pitches are kind of open projects that exist that you can have an opportunity, depending on your interests, to dive into. And working with our government partner, yay, and mainly with 311 data. So one of the things that a lot of city departments put out data sets. So what we're trying to always look and see, hey, what data sets out there can we kind of like, might be of interest to people who come to the brigade or just community at large. Because what we try to balance is the community's need, kind of cool things that we do, and kind of balance out some. So these are kind of 3 things that I'm just highlighting, which is street and sidewalk cleaning. We did interesting, we went out at the farmer's market and hung out there and kind of try to get a vibe of what interest people had. And one of the biggest ones was urine and human feces. So if you can solve that problem, it'd be amazing, because that's the biggest issue for a lot of San Franciscans. And then there's graffiti. Oh, don't do that. And then uni feedback. So there will be a little sign placard that's out there. If there's people who are interested in this kind of project, feel free to congregate, ideate, and do stuff around that, or these data sets, or any data set that's available through 311. Next one. So redeployment, as Trent was saying and that Jesse did, is we don't want to reinvent the wheel. If there's a great project out there that Oakland has done, Sacramento has done, Berlin has done, let's repurpose it. And so basically what we do is we look out and say, hey, what's being done in other cities? Can we deploy it here in San Francisco? So these are 3 that I'm highlighting, which is dangerous intersections in New York City, interactive maps of Austin's parks. Can we do something with like Golden Gate? I think the city may be doing already the dangerous intersections. Then Citigram, and this isn't a redeployment, it's already been redeployed. But basically is you enter any address within the city, and it tells you data, open data that's available that the city's putting out regarding that little area in their part of the city. Last one is Spur, which is their wish list. They had 3, we narrowed it down to 1. And this was really interesting. They want to rethink transit within the whole entire Bay Area. One of their wishes was, is there a way to get yesterday's transit data today? So what they're asking for, and there's an idea page that they've already kind of started filling out. A couple people have been talking and ideating about that. But like, how many minutes of transit delays happened yesterday? How many transit trips happened? What was the carbon footprint, or how much carbon was avoided? And much, much more. Looking at what data is out there. Because it helps set policy, and they're looking to get as much aggregated data to kind of give cities and municipalities a dashboard of this information all in one place. So, do you want to add?
I have to unmute myself. So we do want to open the floor up to any 30-second pitches if you have a project or if you have any ideas. Someone from the audience, if just raise your hand and we'll give you a. Okay, cool.
Do you want to go ahead?
You guys actually want to line up? Yeah, that's a good idea. We're gonna fork that idea from Julio and use it for the entire portion of this. You get 30 seconds, and we will cut you off. I promise.
Hello. All right, hello, everybody. My name is Andrew Hernandez. I'm a representative of Code for San Jose, also a representative of San Jose State University. So there's this project that I'm currently working on with probably 2 other people. It's still in the brainstorming phase, but essentially, how many of you are aware of the blue light system on a campus like universities? So basically, we saw that and we looked at it and we said, this is really old and archaic, and we kind of want to update it. We want to take police data that San Jose State has, which they've already given us, and kind of like sift through that and see how we can do that. We're toying with software solutions or maybe even hardware solutions. So yes, my name is Andrew. I'll be over there somewhere, and if you're interested, find me.
Awesome.
A little handout you can fill out. Thank you.
Go.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Lightholder. I'm an Agile practitioner, and I have 10 years of leading project teams. And I'm working on a solution to bridge the internship gap, which will not fit in 30 seconds. I need a team with an existing project that's working with Ruby on Rails or front-end web design, and a conference room that wants to try out my process. Thank you.
Oh, good. Solid.
Well, hi everybody. I hope you can hear me. I'm a person who works with Code for Oakland, and at one of our recent hackathons, an idea was developed in East Oakland for creating a message hub. Many of us know that we have many organizations we belong to. We get mail pushed to us, we have tweets, we have Facebook postings, but we thought it would be really good to have a message hub which could collect information related to various community development issues and have it available in a filtered way.
Very good. Oh, cool. Yay.
Hi, my name is See You, like see you later, see you again. I have a pipe dream that is using Lyft and Uber to get people to the polling place in 2016, and it will be free, okay? So the drivers can donate their time, people get to vote, maybe we'll get 10 million people. So maybe we'll talk. I'll stand next to him if you are looking for me. And I'm just looking to build a team because we might be able to work with the companies, or we can build an app.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Rommel Fox. My corporation is WhoMentors.com Incorporated. It's a scientific research organization. The goal is to actually take advantage of existing law. There's a program called Community Classroom to allow businesses to offer unpaid internships and paid internships to high school students. So the goal is to streamline the work process, permit process for teens 14 to 17, and then to provide a database for the high school and so on to actually streamline all the work permits. Everything is manual at this time. If this goal is successful, you actually be able to save the state of California $500 million.
Yeah.
Is there?
So that's essentially here. I'm holding your phone. That's what we have as far as kind of the structured part of the evening. If you heard of something that you think is really cool and you want to tackle it, then break up into, go find the person who said that thing and work with them and see how you can give your ideas and kind of energy to them.
One thing before we break up, if our core team for Code for San Francisco can please stand up.
Yeah.
If you have any questions or any kind of, you can just talk to one of us and we'll try to help you along and get the project going. The one thing I always suggest is walk around. You know, a project that sounds interesting may not be so one. One that's kind of like, ends up being a passion that you enjoy. So what can you do tonight? Join a team. We have the little placards out. You've heard great pitches tonight. Join them. You can start something new. You know, maybe the next person next to you, and you guys can work on a project and go, hey, we can have an idea, like sounds interesting. Or you can connect. Mingle around. I hate the word networking, but I like connecting better.
Meet a friend.
Meet a friend.
Meet your future.
You already know their snacks.
Yeah.
So you can find another snack. But lastly, we want to thank Bloomberg Tech Hub for inviting us.
Yeah. SFTech4Good, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, everyone. Let's get going.
Yeah.